Bob, we are talking about fast follower, kind of the opposites of first mover, right?
Yeah, exactly so. Everyone is so fascinated by the first mover advantage, but a lot of companies will show you the history of the successful companies in the space that sometimes, weird as it sounds, true innovation can actually be a little overrated. Because the first person into a market obviously often does have a good idea.
But does a lot of things wrong.
Exactly, makes a lot of very instructive mistakes. And so the people who are paying close attention to those mistakes can become very successful, fast followers.
Yeah, and there's a lot of examples, famous ones, right?
Super famous ones. I mean, people don't really realize how successful this has been over time. So like, let's look at Microsoft, for example, is a pretty successful company. And you can run through whether it's Word, which knocked off WordPerfect, IE, which knocked off Netscape, or Excel, which knocked off Lotus, or Windows itself, which knocked off the Macintosh graphical user interface, the GUI, as we say in the biz. All of those products were second mover products, and a whole bunch of their other ones too. And look at that company.
What about Google?
Well, isn't that surprising? A lot of people are shocked by this, but I actually was this is how old I am. In 1998, I was in Seattle, and I went to a little company called GoTo, which later became Overture, and that was the company that invented the pay-per-click advertising model, for which Google is now, of course, rightly famous. But Google was 2 years behind GoTo at the time, and I remember thinking, oh, no one's going to pay for, like, paid for. Listen, who's going to believe that? I mean, if you see a list and the top two listings are paid for, who's going to do that? Well, shows you what I know. But if Google rightly understood the benefit of that, they did it better, and of course then later on they became Google.
So then what lessons are out there for the poor innovators who have done all the creative thought to actually make that first step? Do they just have to patent as much as possible? Does that help?
It doesn't. It's a great question, because a lot of times you hear that. You know, a lot of times startups, so the first thing they're going to do is run to their IP lawyer and get a bunch of patents.
Pay a
gazillion dollars and wait a couple of years to find out what the patent office thinks. And the reality is it's typically not very effective in the real world. Bad news. You know, I used to have an engineer who worked for me, and he used to say, look, the whole trick is knowing something can be done, because once I know it can be done, I can figure out a way to do it that doesn't violate the patent. So patents aren't really the kind of protection that you're looking for. The real protection you're looking for is iteration, the ability to understand what's good and bad about your product very quickly, as quickly as the fast followers are understanding what's good and bad about your product, and innovating and iterating rapidly enough that your customers don't have any reason to move over.